Hello everyone, welcome to my live stream. Hello XC, and thank you for waiting. Thank you for being patient with me. My name is Denise Mika Hutchins, and I'm broadcasting to you from Studio Mikarts. XC, how are you doing? I'm going to greet you while I do my intro. How are you doing? I'm so glad to see you as always. Oh, where was I? Oh, our charity of the month is the Rat Retreat. So if you'd like to help me help them, just watch my stream and bring your friends, because I'll be making a donation at the end of the month based on my unique viewers count. You can also donate directly if you'd like. There's a Twitch fundraiser button somewhere there, so just click that. It's Thursday, which means it's time for more illustration work. I've been working on this summer Gryphon piece with lazuli buntings combined with American water voles, which you can sort of see with the tails. And they are all enjoying some lovely sunflowers. Yesterday we started adding shading, so we're just going to continue. We've got shading all over lots of areas on the sunflowers. I think there's still more stuff I could work on with the sunflowers, but I'm doing it pass by pass, like the whole thing. So I think actually what's next was we worked a little bit on the back feet on the Gryphon, so we're going to add first level shading to the Gryphon stuff. I need to get my watercolor palette out. Just put this lid over here. I've used it in the past, this lid, for mixing. It's got these wells here, and I've mixed along the edges as well when I've worked on a really big piece. But this is enough for something this size. So let's see, we did all the greens on the sunflowers. Yeah, we were working on these back feet, and I did a little bit on this tail here too. Oh good, I'm always glad to hear you're doing all right, XE. Oh, thank you. I am doing well, too. Thank you. It's another horrible sunny day, but other than that, I am doing really well. My workouts today were indoor workouts anyway, so I didn't have to be baked by the sun except my walk with my dog, so not too bad. I'm sure you know by now, but for anybody else who doesn't know, I hate the sun. I hate the sun. I don't hate the sun in principle, but I hate sunny. That's what it is. I hate sunny weather. Maybe hate is a little bit too strong of a word, but I don't like it. It's my least favorite. That's why I always talk about that. It's such a huge determining factor in my everyday life, because most stuff stays the same from day to day, but the weather changes. Or at least I wish it would, so that it wouldn't be this blistering heat anymore and just the pounding sun. And yeah, my dog this morning, so I'm looking at my colors, deciding what I want to do next. My dog this morning walked a lot slower than usual, and she's a young dog, but that's how hot it was that she got tired really early. So that's just a sort of illustration of how hot it is here. I don't know what color I want to do next. I guess I just better pick something. Let's just pick something. Let's do the gray and dark gray areas, like these front feet, the beaks, and the eyes. Let's just start there. Since I can't decide, I just can't decide. I'm trying to fit my palette here. There we go. Okay, so I've got my I've got my bowl of water here. Here's all my brushes. Got my towel for wiping the brushes on, and I also have this towel for dabbing on my painting if there's any paint I want to pick up off of it. All these gray areas are rather small, so I might just use my smallest brush. Let me see what areas each of these gray, is this all the same, or some of these lighter? So yes, on the beak, the top part there tends to be, looking at my reference images over here, tends to be a dark streak on the top of the beak, but the bottom part is quite light gray. Okay. But the feet, the eyes, and a lot of the feathers are fairly dark. Let's see if I can... I'll look at this one with its wings outstretched. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to use my smallest brush. It's the size 0. And I have this gray already sitting here from a previous painting. I'm going to just use that. Waking that up with some water. Just using the small brush because these areas are pretty small that I'm about to paint. There's not that much room for a broad stroke. So let's see. This is good. So I'll just start. Oh, where will I start? I'll start over here. So thinking about where the sun is shining from, and it's coming from the left and a little bit behind. I've sort of indicated that with the sunflower rays, but now we're going to be applying that same light logic to the Gryphons. So painting with that in mind, keeping the light source in mind. Since I don't really have any reference image for these particular, so the bird part that I'm working on right now in particular, the lighting is all over the place in these reference images. So now I just got to use my imagination pretty much. Do have the references up over here on my left, but they're not very useful. They're more useful for shape and color, but not really for the lighting. Other than giving me an idea of what again with the shape, then I can use my imagination to say, oh, well, if it's this shape, then in this lighting, it will probably look like this. But there's no direct examples I can look at. Actually, anything fun happened since yesterday? Do you have some more things to blow my mind with? I'm not going to start expecting anything, no pressure, but all that cool stuff you've been working on recently has been awesome. That's part of the reason, not directly that, not directly world building exactly, but it sort of is the reason I was late today. I've been marking up my first draft manuscript to make note of wherever I want to make changes, whether it's a big change. For instance, I have a huge change I want to make to the entire novel, which is rewrite it in first person instead of third person. I wrote it in third person, but I realized first person is more effective for what I'm trying to do because I really want to show what the main character's experience was. So to hear it from her, in her words, there's no better way, I think. But other small changes I'm also looking for. And one I realized was I never came up with a name for my main character's little sister. And, well, specifically a name for what type of creature she is. And what I ended up doing was the same that I did for these other ones. I got distracted because my ad blocker just updated and put a message over here for me. I'm like, what the heck? Where did my reference image go? It was the ad blocker update notice. Okay, thank you, ad blocker. Anyway, I was late because I got so into figuring out the name. Because my main character, I'm trying not to give too much away, but my main character is basically she was bred for smarts. So her breed name is based on that. And she had older twin siblings, and they were bred to be beautiful and golden, like sparkling shiny. So their name is based on that. And it's all based on Latin. So I found out something interesting when I was looking up, what do I want to call this little sister who was bred for strength. And I looked up muscle, Latin for muscle. And the word muscle comes from the Latin musculus, I think. And it's actually a form of the word mus or moose, or I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's M-U-S. Means mouse. So that was super interesting. Apparently, everybody online says, including Wikipedia, says it's called that because the flexed bicep looks like a mouse from behind, I guess. So, yeah. I decided on a name for her. I think I named Muscule is what I decided on. Anyway, that's why that's sort of world building in that it's creating some sort of, but it's not the actual world. It's more it's the social world, I guess you could call that. Anyway. Oh, nothing. Oh, why? Why are you having anxiety? You don't have to share if you don't want to. I know what you feel, though. I have no idea if it's from the same causes, but I have that feeling, all that mild anxiety for the future. I understand that. No idea if it's the same causes, but I empathize. Aw, cute. You know where the fishes are. Aw. Are there only fishes in those areas? Or is it just like those are the really populated areas and then, there's certain fish in certain areas but just only very few kinds or something? I guess I'm not just doing shading here. I'm also adding a little bit of detail. But it's thanks to the shading that this detail even happens because the wings here overlap each other, and that creates a little shadow. And then that's how you see the difference between each feather. This one is behind. It's the other wing on the other side, so I'm just going to make it all the way dark. I don't know if this is how it would be actually lit, but it just creates a nice visual contrast. So either way, I'm just going to have it be very different from that other one, from the one that's closer to us. Okay, I think that's good for the first level of this shading on this Gryphon. I did miss a little bit right here, I realize. So I was telling my story about the muscle mice. I was still like, what? And I did this. When I was reading that, I did my bicep, and I was like, I'm not seeing a mouse here. What the heck? The bicep looks like a mouse. I'm not that built. I'm strong. I've been working for a long time on my body composition, but I'm not like a bodybuilder. I'm on my way. I call myself a casual bodybuilder. That's my term for my muscular efforts. Not super serious about it, but I have muscles, so I may as well do something with them. Anyway, I'm not seeing any mice in my biceps. I just think that's so funny. I think that's also cute, too, because mice are usually considered They're even a cultural symbol for weakness. And then, ha! Mussel is named after mice. So take that, people who are insulting about small, cute things. More like where people settle to catch fish. Oh, got you. Yes. Okay. So yeah, then I imagine there's probably fish in lots of other places, but this is where the people in your world are able to get them. Get the fish. Alright, once again, I don't know if this is how the lighting would land on these feathers here, but I do think it's nice. It's giving them some separation. We can really tell there's multiple feathers on top of one another. I'm going to hold it up close so you can see what I mean. Camera doesn't want to cooperate, which means I probably need to remember to press the button when I put this back down. But now it's in focus. It's just this wing I added that first level of shading onto, and then I'd already done this one. And this fellow is done for now, this first pass. Added that gradient from dark to light. Oh, the blue is messing up my white balance. Look at my finger is purple. My camera's like, what's happening? I added a little more dark to the eye and some shading on this foot. Still more to do though. We've got this big one here and this little one in the back. Just gonna keep using this size 0 brush. Although, I'll get a drink of water. That was another 30 seconds of me being late, was filling up my shaker bottle with some water, because I knew I'd be thirsty if I was going to be thirsty either way. And so I figured I'd get my water ready now instead of like pausing to go get water later. Ooh, nice and cold because it's fresh. Okay, just picking up more of this random gray color that I mixed ages ago for who knows what painting. Oh, maybe, I bet it was for that big giant wolf painting that I showed a few weeks ago on stream. The biggest painting I've ever done, and the one that I also like the most. I bet that's what that was for, because that whole painting, the idea was where the wolves were, and they were coming through these halos of flowers, or these wreaths of flowers, and where they were coming through was colorful, and the flowers were colorful, but everything outside of that, including their bodies that were outside of those wreaths, were all gray. I bet that's what that gray is for that I'm using. I mixed it for that. Yeah, the colossal one, yep. One of these days I gotta get it framed. It just sits in my closet, and that's actually not a very safe spot for it to be. Even though I like it so much, but framing is so expensive. Even if you just get the most basic materials, even if you don't get the protective UV proof glass and all these other nice things that you can get, still super, super expensive. So that's why it sits in my closet for now. But maybe for Christmas I'll get some spending money, and then I will use some to get it framed, because I've gotten other pieces framed for contests in the past, and to enter the contest you often have to have it framed, because just to protect the piece, the people running the contest don't want to be too liable if something happens, so it has to be framed and stuff. And pieces only a quarter of that size have cost me $300, so I mean, maybe it doesn't scale up 1-to-1. Hopefully as it gets bigger it's a little, what's the opposite of exponential? Well, hopefully it doesn't mean like cost $300 for a piece this big, then that means that it's going to cost $1,200 for that. Hope not. But I haven't brought it in and gotten an estimate yet either. Who knows, it might surprise me, but if those small pieces cost $300, that one's definitely costing at least $300. If I get it framed, I'm going to hang it up in my dining room, right above my dining room table. We don't have anything hung up in there right now, even though we have all these posters sitting in the garage from when we moved. I never put them up. And I keep thinking, oh, when I go on a vacation week, then I'll put them up. And then I'm so tired on my vacation week, I don't do anything. So I need an extra different kind of a vacation. There's the vacation to get stuff like that done, and then there's the vacation to just chill out and not really do anything. And two kinds. So with this wing, I am doing the same thing I was doing with the sunflower rays yesterday, where the feathers are overlapping. That's where I'm putting a bit of shadow. I'll do the same thing on the other side. It's easier if I turn it around. I don't know if you're actually seeing me that well on this small one there. Well, not me, but seeing what I'm painting. There we go. Okay, same thing here. Wherever the feathers are overlapping, that's where we're going to put some shadow. And this is something I can see in reference images, and I've seen it so many times, both on this painting project and on previous ones, that I'm not even looking. I just know that that's how it always looks like that. Even on birds like crows with really dark black feathers, this will still happen. This effect will still happen because the feathers are made of little tiny, I don't know the terminology, but there's these little tiny things, and then they all sort of zip up together like zippers. But that means that light still comes through. So when the wing is extended like this, even black feathers have that overlap effect because the light can get through those little tiny things that grow out from the stem of the feather. Man, I do not know bird terminology at all, even though I draw birds so much. Hold on. I can't let that stand. I'm gonna look it up. Names for the parts of a my keyboard's first recommendation for the next word. Names for the parts of a man. No. No! Feather! Names for the parts of a feather. That's what I want. Whoa, here we go. Whoa, okay. I need a picture. There's a bunch of names. Here we go, here's a picture. Where's this? The Feather Atlas. What the heck is the Feather Atlas? Fish and Wildlife Service.gov. Ooh. Oh, neat. Okay, look at this. This is fws.gov, fishwildlifeservice.gov. I guess that's the U.S. site. Rachis. I don't know if that's how you pronounce this. Rachis? Emargination. Oh, notch. Posterior vein. Anterior vein. Pennaceous barbs. Plumulaceous barbs. And calamus, or quill. So this thing in the middle is called the calamus. Barbs. Pennaceous barbs. I guess that's how you pronounce that? I guess they're called barbs. Let me ask the Google Gemini. Are those little things that grow out of a quill on a feather called a barb? Exie, how cool is that? Right! So exciting to learn some things. Oh. Okay, they're not called barbs, they're called barbules. According to Google Gemini, it says barbules are even smaller, hairy structures that project from the sides of the barbs, interlocking with... Oh, okay, I understand. Interlocking with the barbules from neighboring barbs to create the smooth, aerodynamic surface of a feather. This interlocking mechanism is what gives feathers their strength and flexibility. Okay. I'm going to draw this real quick. I'm going to cement it in my brain. So this is called the quill. That's the middle. Oh, let me get the little camera there. That's that middle part of the feather that everything grows out of. And then you have the part that grows out. And if we zoom in, it's got these bits growing out, these hairs growing out of the quill, and they grow out. These are barbs, and if you zoom in even further, between the barbs, and this is how the zipping mechanism happens, the barbules are sticking out. And that's how these barbs zip up together. And I see my pigeons doing it all the time. And I've seen when I had chickens as a kid, all birds, they zip their own feathers up by using their beak. And they ship, ship, so that because they can come apart and they can use their beak to zip them up. So these are the barbules. The little tiny ones coming off of the tiny ones coming off of the big one. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else, but now I know. Haha! Yay! Just like I learned about the parts of the sunflower, now I'm learning about the parts of a feather, which seems like a thing I should have learned about a lot longer ago, since I draw griffins all the time, but, you know, there's so much information out there. Also, I feel like I've learned this before and I just forgot. Anyway, let's get back to work. Let's stop being distracted. What was I working on? Oh yeah, the gray. So, let's do a little bit more on the face. So I got the wings done, the feet, but the face is still lacking. I already forgot what the other name of the quill is. Let me ask you. What's the other name for the quill on a feather? It says calamus. Calamus. That sounds like someone's name in an RPG. Oh, it's because it sounds like Camus. I'm pretty sure that's a... Hold on. I'm pretty sure that's a Suikoden character. Suikoden is my favorite game series. Is Camus a character in Suikoden? Oh, it's not recognizing what I said. No, not chemist. I've got to type it. Here I said no more distractions. Haha. Camus is a Suikoden character. Suikoden. Suikoden, not suicide. Why would they think I'm typing that? Suikoden. Keyboard. Character? I have to type it because it did not understand the words I said when I searched before. Oh, and the A is like, you're right, I apologize for the misinformation. There's no character named Camus. It says. Is Camus a character in a different game? Cool, I like this. It remembered this time and didn't put chemist again. Oh, it doesn't know. It's like it could be. Not very useful answer at all. I'm sure I've heard Camus somewhere as the name of a character. Well, if anybody else knows, you drop it in the chat, let me know. What was it called? Calamus or something for the... I already forgot the quill name. I think it was Calamus for the quill name. Having a little trouble with that tiny beak there, but I'll just let that be and we'll come back to it later because this is only the first pass. We'll be able to add more color later, more shading. And this fellow we're only seeing from the top, so there's not that much, but there's that dark streak at the top of the beaks on the ones with this color pattern, so we'll add that in there. And it's not a strong hard shape, it's more has a soft edge to it, so I'm softening this edge with some water. Soften it even more with just a damp brush. Bring it all the way to the edges. And let's take the towel, pull a little bit off the edge on each side. There. Actually, I'm going to put a tiny bit more just right in the center. The page is still damp, so it bleeds out in a nice, lovely, organic way. But since I dabbed each side of the beak, it's not going all the way to the edges. There. So there's that. Something a little bit more interesting for the beak there. Oh yes, now this one. So we've got the feet. Let's do the feet and the beak first. And some paint. And the sun is coming from over here, as far in terms of this scene. It's coming over here. So it'll probably be the backs of these hands will be the darkest. Actually, it'll probably be just like these sunflower stalks, where the sun is sort of wrapping around, lighting each side, but not the very middle. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's do the beak. It's going to be similar to this. So this is not so much shading as adding the color, the pigment. Alright, that's good for now. Let me get back to the reference image with the wings outstretched like this. I'm trying to see if these gray feathers here, they might be so overlapping because they're overlapping these, and there's probably more feathers on the underside that we're not seeing. Oh man, I just realized my overhead light is on. I'm going to turn it off real quick. I feel like it makes my head cast a shadow on the scene, so they keep it off, but I forgot. Because I was running late, so it makes sense I forgot. Oh, thank you! Yay! Glad you think so. We haven't gotten too far yet today, but a little bit at a time. Yeah, it seems like these dark gray ones, you don't see that effect so much. Although it does depend on the angle, because here I'm seeing it. Well, let's just put it on. It's like I said earlier, I don't have a direct reference image for the lighting for any of these. So I've got to use my imagination, and for this I think it'll be easiest to just have them all have that effect, especially since if the sun is coming from here, the sun is lighting through this Gryphon quite evenly. Okay, so where do I start? We've got overlap all over. I guess I'll start over here. For that usual reason, my left-handedness. So if I start over here, less likely to put my hand in wet paint. Alright, wake up a little bit more of this gray paint. This might be a little bit too dark. Add a little bit more water to it, thin it out. We have a feather on top of a couple other feathers. So many of these feathers are just cut off by the illustration itself. It's really tough to imagine where is this overlap happening. It's way easier to imagine when you can see the tip of the feather and see, oh, this one is on top of this one. We follow this line down here, like I did for this Gryphon in the back. Oh, my little camera's not really looking at what I'm working on. There we go. One wing almost done. Well, at least these main feathers. I want to add a little to these as well while I'm at it. This next level of feathers on the wing. So here shows nicely what I was saying about how these ones are tough to paint this overlap because you can't see the end, but these ones you can see the end of the feather. And just follow that line with your imagination back up underneath the neighboring feather. This little brush doesn't hold very much water or paint, so I keep having to dip it in the water bowl every time. That's a trade-off for using a small brush. It's just physics. It's smaller, so it can't hold as much. This feather is on top of, completely on top of another feather, so it'll be completely shaded in with this gray. Boop. Okay, on to the next one. Oh, no, wait, I didn't do these ones. These little ones at the end. Trying to get this nice in the little camera. There. Something like that. Okay, now going on to this side. To the left side of this Gryphon. At least since I've done the right side, I'm having that same issue where I don't see the bottom of these feathers, but I've seen them on the right side, so I can just sort of flip it and do the opposite thing over here. Oh, it's so short, I don't think that you really see. It's just they're all going to be darker. It's so high up on the wing. You don't really see this curved part. Maybe we'll see it as we get farther over here. A little bit. I don't think so. Maybe here. Alright, and just these tiny, tiny ones. Alright, and these long ones. Long feathers. I'm still practicing being more precise with my word choice. It's so easy to just say this, that, this one, that one. And then I realize that it's not descriptive at all for someone who is perhaps just listening instead of watching intently. Well, I'm working on it. Working on being more precise, more descriptive. Alright, that's good to start with. I feel like I'm going to have to work this a little bit more to get the effect I want. But we'll just leave it there for the first pass. And keep moving on to other things that we can work on. Something I'm seeing, I made these feathers. I think they're supposed to be darker. I'm going to try to find a reference that shows this color pattern. Yeah, it should be. These ones higher on the back should be darker. So, let's grab some more of this gray and apply it. Yeah. Feel free. That's awesome. I'd love to see what you do with it. It's still wild how this camera is. I mean, this main one too, when I hold it up close, the blue really throws it off. I still don't know why this little camera loses its mind about these orange colors. They're really not that vibrant. I mean, it's orange, so it's vibrant, but not this crazy neon color. You're welcome. I'm so glad that this weirdness will amount to something. Thank you for giving it a purpose. Give that crazy orange color a purpose. So since I made these darker, I'm realizing that this should also be darker on this Gryphon. Ooh, I'm using this again. This top middle Gryphon made me realize that the left middle Gryphon should also have darker feathers right here. Ooh, it is exactly break time. Hooray! Right when it seemed like I was finished with this gray, because the similar areas on these brown Gryphons, I want to use a more brown gray, so it's a slightly different color. So taking my break between colors is always extremely satisfying. And also, I'm not waking up a color, leaving, and then it's dry and I have to wake it up again. So it's also time saving. All right, break time. Everybody, please take the opportunity to give your body a rest, do some stretching, whatever you need. I'm going to, if I can find it on OBS, here we go. Turn on my be right back sign, mute my mic, and I'll be back in 5 minutes. Hello everyone, I'm back. Hope you had a great break. I am all stretched out and ready to continue painting. Oh, what were we? Oh, yeah, let's get a brown gray to work on these two brown griffins that are in this scene. Oh, thank you, Exie. Welcome back to you as well. I think I actually have a sort of brownish gray going on here. Realize this is definitely got brown in it. This is what I was using just now before the break. So yeah, let's use this. Wake this brown one up. I want to add a little bit more brown to it. It's pretty dark for a first pass. Okay, now a little bit of brown. So to do that, I'm going to get a bigger brush. I'm just going to get, oh, yeah, I'll get my darkest brown. Here, I'll do this on screen so that it's not boring. This is darkest brown here. Oh, my one ear is all clogged up like I'm underwater. What the heck? Why did that suddenly happen? What the heck? Oh, that helped. Sniffing and swallowing helped. Huh, that was weird. You know, like when you go underwater or you suddenly go through a pressure change, like on an airplane or hiking or something. That randomly happened, and I'm just sitting here in my basement. There's no changes happening here. Well, it has been really bad air quality, though I think today is actually relatively good compared to recent days. So maybe it's that air quality creating allergies. Okay. So, I'm liking this better. A little bit more brown to it, and it definitely looks different now from this, which it was mixed with. Okay, I'm not going to use this big brush. I'm going to go back to my size 0. This one was the size 4. They're both round tip. Back to size 0 for these small details. So let's start on this side. Same thing, keeping in mind the light source, which in this scene is just the sun. Summer sun. Where it's coming from, how it would be hitting these different things like the feathers. I am painting now. This is taking a lot of mental energy, so I'm already feeling pretty tired from this painting so far today. It just takes so much thought to determine where to put this darker paint. But it's Thursday, so that means I'll have the weekend to recharge, come back to this project fresh next week. Of course, I'll be streaming tomorrow, but it won't be illustration. It'll be Chibi Friday. So I think maybe actually most of this hand will be in shadow because of the Gryphon's body casting a shadow on it. But not this hand. Not the topper hand, topmost hand, upper hand. Not sure how to describe it. The one on the left, yes. The left hand. Left side hand. Okay, let's add a little more shading to this wing. Trying to get the perfect balance between water and paint on my brush. So I need enough water to spread the paint, but if there's too much, then the paint becomes too thin. That's pretty good though. This whole side of the body would be in shadow, I think. Nice, already looking more three-dimensional. Okay, see you when you get back. X is going to be right back. Oh, and the beak. What color is the beak on these? Brown ones. Oh, it's quite light. Okay, so we'll leave that. The beak is about the same color, and that's what I painted, as these parts on the wings, these light parts on the wings. Okay, so move over to this one, way over here on the other side. The only really dark part is the eye. And their eyes really are dark. I'm just going to paint the whole thing in. On every one of these reference images, it just looks like a cute, it's like just a black eye, and the only dimension to it is that little pop of highlight. Little white sparkle. Alright, so next color. I can keep working with the browns on the brown ones, though this is still drying and stuff, so maybe we could work on the blue a little bit. Add some shading to the blue. Set that there. And think about, I'll get my reference images up. What's a good shadow color for the blue? I think like just a dark blue is a good shadow color. At least for the first pass. For the really dark shadows, a more gray actually seems like it would be good. But let's just start with a blue because I want this painting to stay colorful. I think I used this color purely think, for the blue feathers on these griffins. So maybe if I just go down to this color for the first pass blue. Let's just do that. So let's wake this up. I'm gonna get my big 1-inch wash brush to deposit a bunch of water on here. Start to wake it up. Oh, it dripped. Did it drip outside the palette? No? Okay, good. In the palette is fine. Drip as much as you want. Brush. Okay. I think that's enough water, so now just working the paint to get the dry, solid part to break up and mix with the water. That looks pretty good. So I'm just going to leave that, scrape off as much as I can. Okay. Look how pretty that is. Now to rinse it off. Just watching my water for swirls of color coming off as I press the bristles into the bottom of the bowl. And when I don't really see swirls coming off, that means it's pretty well rinsed. And I'm going to set it on the towel to rest until I'm ready to use it again. So now I'm going to set my palette back to my left, bring the painting back down, and think about, we're definitely going to start with this one, the bottom right one. Hi, that one is so big, I'm going to use my size 4 brush, size 4 round, and in fact I'm going to wet the entire Gryphon, except along the front edges where I think the light will be hitting most. This is going to help give a lot of dimension. Right now it looks very flat. Okay, let's see what this is like. Grab a bunch of this blue. I'm going to start it in the area where I think would be darkest, and just try to spread it into these other areas where I've already dampened the paper. It's actually pretty similar to how I painted the first layer of blue on here. Keep grabbing more water with my brush. Help move it. It's not just called watercolor because it's a water medium. It's watercolor because water is how you can manipulate the color, the pigment itself. Also trying to make this as even looking as possible, the distribution of the color. So we've got a little bit extra over there. Bring it over here where I'm not seeing as much. Oh, but it's trying to leak down into the white feathers. Take this towel and dab that away. I'm also going to dab along the edges to soften them up. But with a big space like this, got to make sure to keep refreshing which part of the towel you're using, otherwise you'll start depositing the color back on instead of lifting it up. Which I have done, so I know that from personal experience. I would be dabbing color away and then wondering, what are these little spots? And it was my own paint that I was putting down. Like, whoops, that's my finger. That is like a fingerprint shape. I'm just adding color wherever it seems like it needs it. Oh, welcome back, Exie! Yay! Yay! I'm glad! We're on to one of the most impactful parts, I feel. The blue. First level of shading on the blue. Something I was not worried about, but I thought that I wanted to make sure didn't happen after I was looking at my progress yesterday. The shadows I added kind of seemed to dull the piece a little bit, I realized, so I want to make sure that my shadows, I mean, it is, the colors are more dull in the shade, but this isn't about being naturalistic. So I'm going to make sure that I retain the vividness of the scene in general. I'm liking this natural, organic edge that's developing as the paint dries. So I'm working that a little bit just to, I want to keep that organic edge. I like the texture it gives. I think it helps with the feather texture. But I also want it to be the right shape for what the shadows would be on this Gryphon as it's flying in here. So I'm just trying to harness the natural flow of the paint a little bit. I think that's good for the first pass though, so let's just let that dry. We'll add more later. But there's more blue to add right here, this little head. I'll do the same thing. Well, it's so far away. It doesn't really show in the little camera, so sorry about that, but it shows in the big camera. Wet the page first, and then we'll put shadow color in the center of this and let it spread out. Wow, my paint water is so pretty with the blue paint in it. do the same thing as I did on the other one. Dab away along the edges where I really want the light to be hitting strongly. Oh, that's good. Let's let that one dry. Man, I stretched out, but my back is suddenly giving me particular issues just now. And take a drink of water and sit up for a minute. I did do a strength training workout this morning, so maybe that's part of it. I don't want to take any ibuprofen if I can help it, because I read a study a long time ago, maybe it's been debunked by now, I don't know, but it said that taking ibuprofen, yes, it reduces inflammation, but that inflammation is exactly the process that builds muscle. So taking ibuprofen because of muscle or because of workout soreness to lessen workout soreness also lessens your strength gains and your muscle gains. So try not to. I try not to. But if my back keeps bothering me like this, I think I'm gonna have to take something. Okay, next spot, and it's this tricky area where there's little patches of brown feathers in with the blue. So I'm just gonna do my best to paint around the brown, give space for the brown to exist. This is pretty tough, actually, to paint around here. I've got to get just the right amount of paint and water. Just like I was saying earlier. So if there's too much water, it's not just that it waters down the color, but it ends up being a big blob on the end of your brush, and it spreads out really fast and goes into areas you don't want it to go into. And then on the other hand, if you have too much paint with not enough water, you'll have a big blob of paint. And then it can dry really fast before you can get the more water on there to spread it out. And then you end up with this really dark spot. And you've got to work around that. Not doing too bad. Not doing too bad, though. Just saying, it requires a lot of thought. I think that's why. Maybe it's also just because it's Thursday. So this is my 4th day of work this week. And I'm doing all kinds of stuff. I'm practicing for my next speech, which is going to be on Sunday. I've been working on my novel again. Had my productivity meeting this week. And I do my usual Japanese tutoring. And of course, live streaming, so it could just be that I'm tired in general. Oh, thank you, Exie. Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty good. It went over really well with my club, the first one. So I got great feedback from that one that I will be applying to this speech. So I'm really hoping that this one goes over just as well. I did my best to pack in lots of good information, making it relevant to the people I want to speak to, and also presenting it in a fun, energetic, and hopefully humorous. I don't feel confident in my humor. I'm doing it's called Pathways, so it's kind of like a course. It's a self-guided course. Gives you speech projects to do as you go through, and then you learn stuff. I chose the engaging humor one because all the other ones were really business-like, and I'm not a business person, not like that. So I chose the humor one. I'm like, I don't know anything about humor, but I made my audience laugh with my last speech, so hopefully the couple little jokes and things I put in will go over well this time too. I just gotta practice. I practiced once today, but that's definitely not enough. I need to practice it some more. It's on Sunday, so I basically have until Saturday to really practice, because you practice, then you sleep. And as you sleep and get a good sleep, your brain solidifies it in there for you. So while I can practice on Sunday, that's just more like warming up. It's not really practice so that I can actually memorize it or anything. Because by then it'll be too late. So I've been following a practice regimen. Well, it's not super strict or anything, but when I was first figuring out how am I going to practice for my speeches, I really like the advice I saw, I think it was from Toastmasters, from a Toastmasters article or lesson or something. Said divide up the speech and make sure you're not, for instance, something that apparently some people run into is they end up really good at the beginning of their speech because they practice, then they mess up, so they start back over at the beginning again. So they keep starting over, and doing the beginning way more times than the end because they never get to the end because they keep stopping every time they have a mistake or they forget something. So the advice that I'm following is break it up and practice. I would like, if I could have gotten it written sooner, I would like to just practice a paragraph a day, but I didn't get it finished soon enough. So I'm practicing the first half today, the second half tomorrow, Friday. Saturday I will practice the whole speech all together, and then hopefully that will be enough so that on Sunday I can give the speech definitely without reading it, but also hopefully without looking at my notes. So yeah, that's what I've got planned for myself for this one. Yeah, I think that explains why I'm so tired doing all this stuff. But I enjoy it all, and I feel like it all has meaning, so I don't regret it or anything. I just feel tired sometimes, like today. It's not a sleepy tired, though, so that's nice. It's just I'm running on 80% kind of feeling. Not at 100% right now. Doing my workouts all week is probably draining me too. I'm still training for the half marathon. So I did a training run on Tuesday, a training run yesterday, and then today I did my Nintendo Switch workout games. I did Zumba and Ring Fit Adventure. That's my strength training, is Ring Fit. Then tomorrow I've got another training run. Okay, one more. They're getting nice and the color is getting really robust on the blue Gryphons. Let's do this one way in the background. Super teeny tiny. This one in the background is actually one of the best illustrations of the fact that this is a Gryphon and not birds. Nearly everyone else is cut off. This one is not cut off, but the tail's cut off. This one's not cut off, but the tail's cut off. This one's cut off. These are cut off. This one's cut off on the opposite side. This one you can see the whole body pretty much. I'm relying on you, tiny background Gryphon, to give the viewers of this piece a clue about the subject matter. These are not just birds. Just had a thought that now that I'm working on my second speech and trying to fall into a rhythm of giving a speech every month, I see why so many people who join Toastmasters in general, whatever club they join, or multiple clubs, why lots of people get kind of addicted to Toastmasters itself, and they seem to not really care so much about how public speaking can help them in their lives and stuff. They just, like, Toastmasters is their hobby. They enjoy giving speeches or listening to speeches, giving feedback on speeches, doing the roles during the meetings, or visiting other clubs and seeing what different clubs do, how they run their meetings. I've met several of these people since actually joining. I joined Vegan Toastmasters. I'd heard of Toastmasters before, but it seemed like such a business-centric, and in a way it kind of is. It's a very business-centric program. But it really works for anybody. Anybody who could benefit from public speaking practice or improvement. Because even, say you're at a wedding and someone wants to give you a speech, or wants you to give a speech, that's public speaking. So helpful for that. Or I read an article in the Toastmasters magazine recently. The title was something like "The Speech I Never Wanted to Give," or "The Speech I Didn't Want to Give," or something. And it was because it was at their parents' funeral, and that kind of thing. I feel like anybody could benefit from just the experience of public speaking, just so that you're not nervous, or you know how to put something together if you need to, etc. So, but it's just funny. It's funny how it's a hobby for some people. Toastmasters is a hobby for some people. And I can see why. That's what I was getting at. I can see why, because it's actually pretty fun. Come up with a topic, so you've got like your assignment if you're following a pathway. And then, so that gives you a little structure, which is super helpful. And then within that loose structure, you choose your topic, how you want to present, etc. And then for me, I'm taking it to the next level, because I'm doing like cosplay and a virtual background, and this time I'm going to have props to help with the points I'm trying to make. For instance, one of the points, this is a little sneak peek of the content of my speech. One of the points is that there was a study that showed people can save about $750 a year by switching to a vegan diet, just because plant-based food is so much cheaper. And so to illustrate that, I found the perfect equation. You can buy a Nintendo Switch, a Pro controller, get the Nintendo Switch Online, at least these are North America prices, but get the Nintendo Switch Online subscription and get 6 games, 6 first-party games with that $750, and that's in the first year. So, yeah, I've got props for points like that to help illustrate it. Especially if, for me personally, numbers stuff goes in one ear and out the other. So to have a visual will help other people like me who, yeah, you hear these numbers, but then you just sort of like, okay, there's a number, and it doesn't really mean anything. But if you see a stack of Nintendo Switch box, Pro Controller, and all these 6 games, that's a visual showing what $750 is worth, or what $750 can get you. Next, I want to do a little brown. I think the last color. Oh, no, the brown and then these cream colors. Oh, and this brown is different. Okay, so we've actually got... Oh, this one is supposed to be the same as it. So we've got this middle brown. Then this yellowish brown on the brown Gryphons. Then this creamy color on the brown and blue Gryphons. And we have not put any shadow color on the white feathers on this one. Yes, okay, so there's at least 3 more colors to attend to. Oh, what do I want to start with, though? Maybe with these white feathers, because this should be... Maybe it's actually still feels a little damp. Never mind. We'll leave it, because this still feels a little bit damp. It's because it's such a big space. Oh, let me get another drink of water. So let's do, yes, we'll start with this creamy yellow-brown color on the brown Gryphons. What would be a good shadow color? I already have this orangey one that I use for the sunflowers. Well, maybe I shouldn't use the same one because then they'll blend in with this. Okay, never mind. Let's get a different color. Maybe this one that's in the corner. It might be a good shadow color for these light parts here. And that should be the same color for the beaks too. Let's try it. Let's just see. I'm gonna wake it up with my big brush again. My big 1-inch wash brush. Oh, I guess I'll do it over here so that it's more... And I'm covering up my painting, so it's not very likely that I will spill paint on it doing this. Not impossible to spill, though, so we've got to be careful. It's not impossible, just not as likely. That's probably enough water, so just wake up the paint. That looks pretty vibrant, so leave that there. Just scrape off as much of the paint as I can. Okay, rinse it off in water. Put this back over on the left. got a reference image for these. Well, this one's on a cloudy day, so it doesn't actually have very strong lighting. But you can, especially on the beak, you can see some differences in color. Okay, I just used my imagination as usual because this is strong lighting. This scene is strong lighting. The sun is coming from behind. Not cloudy. Okay, I'm going to use my size 0 round brush. So we've got to get into these little teeny tiny areas here. And trying to see this darker reddish brown just kind of fades into this lighter brown. I'll just start with the wings and then I will figure that out. Oh yeah, this is great. This is great. First pass shadow color. Yay! So everything on this side should be on the right side of the Gryphon. Yes, more precise with my words. Hooray. More precise with my directions. The right side of the Gryphon should be almost entirely in shadow. And this looks like a really nice shadow color for what's already on the page. And I can use the existing shadows that I painted for the dark brown to guide me. I love it when I've gotten to that point because it makes it so much easier. I don't have to think as much. There's already something on there I just have to make it match. Alright, this wing. This one is catching a lot of light. We don't need as much shadow on this side. More just to show the difference between the feathers to help highlight. Highlight not in the lighting sense, but in the bring attention to kind of sense. The difference between the feathers. That's pretty good. Let's do the beak. Unlike the male lazuli griffins, the female ones don't seem to have a dark line across the top of the beak. So we'll just do basic shading. The sun's coming from over here, so the shadow is going to be on the opposite side. And as the sun curves over the top of the beak, the shadow will start a little more gently, so I'm going to add a little water to soften that line up. Something like that. I think I can move on and paint this back part. I was thinking about whether the wings are dry yet, and I think they're fine. Even if they're not dry, because it's not really touching the area that I want to add shadow. I'm going to add it with little strokes to make some fur texture. And that's all I need. The only other area this particular shadow color needs to be is on this beak. And it's mostly going to be in shadow because the sun, again, is coming from the upper left and behind the figures in this scene. So this is mostly in shadow, and this whole head's going to be in shadow. I'm going to apply the color in the area where the shadow is strongest, and then add a little water to soften it and create a gradient where the sun is wrapping around and bringing some light to the beak. I'm adding a little bit more of the shadow color in the middle again. Basically right where the line is, where the beak closes, the top and bottom half meet each other. Okay, sweet. Rinse my brush out. Think about what color I want to do next. I could work on this reddish brown, but these other areas I just worked on might still be wet, so I don't want to disturb that paint until it's completely dry. I mean, I don't want to disturb that paint at all, but it's way easier to accidentally do something you don't want to. So, how about let's do the cream color. It's only really visible on these two. This cream color on the, they call it, the scientific, I guess, description is non-breeding male. My idea is that they are fully, they're not juvenile anymore, but they have not reached full adulthood either. They haven't reached full maturity. That's my guess as to why they call them non-breeding males. But the point is that they're sort of in the middle, because all babies look like this kind, and then all females look like this kind. So when the males are babies, they look like this too. So as they grow up and grow into these flashy feathers, they still have some of the camouflage feathers still. So that cream color is not very strong at all. I'm gonna go look at a picture, get some ideas for what the shadow color would be. Yeah, it's almost just like a gray. Well then, maybe I'll just use a tiny touch of that brown gray that I mixed earlier. Just trying not to apply too much. Make it really, really thin with water. Let's see if I can do that. So this side of this Gryphon would be completely in shadow. Yeah, this seems perfect. Really thin version of that gray-brown. In fact, it seems like it might work on this reddish brown too. Let me just try it. Let's see. So there's this reddish brown patch too. Oh, not bad. Yeah. So let's use it for the little hindquarters here as well. So all this stuff is in shadow. keep adding a little bit more. So I'm still seeing little areas of white page showing through where I tried not to paint brown on blue, and I tried not to paint blue on brown, so it just leaves a little blank spot. So now is the time to fill those in. That's pretty good. Yay! Well, there's more on the wing to do. Move up there. Since I'm using the size 0, once again I keep having to reload my brush because it's not carrying enough paint. But I want to be able to get into these little tiny areas, so that's why I'm using the small brush. Here are more of those little patches of brown, and also little areas of white where neither blue nor brown ended up getting onto the page. Fill all of that in. Not bad, that's good enough for the first pass. We definitely need more by the end, but that goes for the entire piece, so that's okay. Oh, it's just about break time though. So let's take a break. Let's get refreshed, go drink some water, walk around, look at something off in the distance, or go into a different sort of lighting environment. Oh, I'm stretching already. Okay, I'm gonna turn on my be right back and mute my mic, and I'll be back in 5 minutes. everyone, I'm back. Hope you had a great break and are ready for the next hour of illustration. Yay! Oh, welcome back to you too, XD, and thank you. Ooh, I had a snack. Now I gotta drink some water to wash it down. I just had a Soylent bar. We've got caramel this time. Okay, so we left off on this Gryphon and we were working our way to this one and this one for, there's not going to be very much, but we'll have a little bit on the, what would you call it, the back side of this Gryphon here. The top middle one of this brownish gray, but watered down enough that it's not too dark. So let's just jump in. Start adding that color. And we've got the same thing here as elsewhere, where there's a lot of parts on the page that no color whatsoever has been deposited, because I've been trying to leave room for both the blue and the brown to exist. Sometimes that leaves gaps in between the two colors. So now we're filling those gaps in too, not just adding shading. There's some little tiny areas I'm not getting. Come on, just right there, here we go. It's tough because I'm trying not to put too much paint down, but then sometimes nothing comes off my brush at all because I'm being so conservative with my application of the paint. That's pretty good though. Good enough for the first pass. That's what we're working on today, basically. The first pass of all the shading, and then we'll just keep adding and adding. It will gain more and more depth. Move on to this one in the very far background. I gotta be careful, the colors are getting a little bit muddy. This is such a small area. As with watercolor, you can't completely remove a color from a page, but you can work it a little bit. And you can do it by accident too, so moving a little bit more color than I want. But this is alright. Overall, it's alright. We do have a nice sense of shading on this one now. This very far back top left Gryphon. You're hearing my dog's nails on the floor. Aoife decided she wants to go into the bed that Chappie usually lays in, but Chappie didn't come down with us after the last break, so it's just me and Aoife right now. Aoife is my big dog. Chappie is my little dog. All right. What's the next color? I did use that same brown for this reddish brown, but some areas like right here on this wing, I think the reddish brown needs its own shadow color. So I'm gonna pick up my illustration, get my palette over here, just so it's more interesting. Mix colors on screen. This color is already a really nice red brown, so I'm just going to start with this and see if using that straight from the well will give us a good enough first pass shadow color. So I'm using my wash brush to get water into the well, and then just brushing the dry color until it mixes with the water. And the more you do this way of doing watercolors, where you're reusing, which I think is the way to go, but you don't have to. You could use straight out of the tube over and over and only use wet color out of the tube, but it's such a waste. You could just keep reusing watercolor as long as you're willing to spend the time to wake it up like this. And you start to get used to what it looks like when there's enough pigment mixed in. Like the water becomes less transparent and it starts to look more thick and rich in color. And you can't really overdo it either. That's a nice thing. If you're not sure, you can keep working it, keep mixing it a little bit, just to be sure that it's got enough pigment in there. I'm just trying to scrape off as much paint from the brush as I can. It looks like that's about it. It just keeps going back into the brush. So I'm going to rinse off the brush. Oh, there's still color streaming out when I pull it out of the water, so it's definitely full of pigment still. Okay, brush is clean-ish. It's rinsed. The brush is rinsed. So I'll put my palette back over to my left. I've been keeping my palette on my left because my hand is on the left, so my dominant hand. Well, it's not my dominant hand. It's my dominant for writing and brushing my teeth and certain things, and other things I'm right-handed. For the most part, it's that I'm left-handed for things that use a lot of really fine motor skills and finesse, and then I'm right-handed for things that are big movements that require a lot of strength. But that's not always the case because I think I'm mostly right-handed for eating, but it's hard to say. Oh, I'm definitely right-handed for chopsticks. I'm trying to imagine. Because, yeah, I use my fork in this hand and the knife. I guess I'm ambidextrous. But I definitely prefer to use chopsticks in my right hand. And that's a finesse kind of thing, so I don't know. I don't know what is up with my handedness. But I don't really have a dominant hand. That's why it's troublesome when, say, on my Garmin, when you get a Garmin and you set it up, you choose what your dominant hand is, and I'm like, I need some context for why you need to know for me to choose which hand. Because there's a different form on Garmin. There's a different field for dominant hand versus hand that you're going to be wearing the watch on. And like, this does not help me. I need to know why, then you need to know. I don't think it really affects anything that much, but that's just the kind of thing I face. Those little small things that nobody thinks about. Which is fine, because most people are one hand or the other. Heath, are you already having an eating dream? I just heard a little smacking sound. I think Heath was already having an eating dream, even though we just came in here 10 minutes ago. Oh, you're welcome. Have a great night's sleep. Sweet dreams. Hope to see you again soon. Yay, see you tomorrow. Goodbye, Exie. Thank you for joining me. Yeah, definitely adding this color is the right move. This is so much better. Don't want it to look the same as these cream feathers. So I'm also going to use this color for these brown patches on the hindquarters, because that's what it's actually supposed to be, more this color. So I dropped some color on there, and now I'm using a damp brush to spread it out so it's not too dark. I guess we'd have some of both colors in this area, actually. Just how it's fading from this reddish color into the more yellow color on the female griffin. What the heck? I apparently got some paint or something on my hand, and it's getting on the page. Or I got water on the page and the paint is coming off onto my hand. What the heck? Guess I dripped some water or something without realizing. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna clean my hand off so I don't keep transferring this color where I don't want it. That's what's nice about watercolor. It's so easy to clean. So I'm all clean. But I got a little bit here and here. So this is going to take a little bit of water and try to smooth it out. It's not too big of a deal. I don't know if anybody would even notice, but yeah, let's add a little brown back in here. Maybe that's just proof of how tired I am today. I just dripped water or something and didn't even notice, and then put my hand in it and tracked the color elsewhere. There, I think that is a good enough repair for now. Let's add a tiny bit more. Good enough for now. We can refine that a little bit more later. There's definitely more I want to do to these sunflower discs either way. Ooh, yikes. Hold on, I'm gonna stretch my back. I'm just gonna lean back in my chair for a minute. My left lower back is giving me some trouble today. It doesn't normally do this. I don't normally have a more sharp pain like this. I'm not sure what's up. Okay. Back to the piece. I just got to be careful about this area because it's still wet. Oh yeah, and these feathers. Let me go back to my reference images. What color should these be? It's hard to say. So here's this line, and then gray. And then this is like a grayish blue and brown mix. Like it's all kinds of colors. Almost looks like I need more blue, but I guess it depends on the individual. Well, we'll just make it brown as it is. So I'll add this reddish brown. Applying it where the shadow would be strongest, and then I'm going to ease it up into the areas where the sun will be curving around the back of the Gryphon and lightening it up. Yeah, that's nice. I would have made things easier on myself if I didn't do these juvenile young male Gryphons with the mixed brown and blue, but it's too late. They're already part of the scene. I always make things hard for myself. And it's not about whether it's easy or hard, it's about what story I'm telling, and I like the story I'm telling, so it's okay if it's tough. Tough to tell it. Besides, it's not the easy things that make you better at what you do. I just realized there's this little area under the eye. Right now it's basically white, and it does need to be a really light color based on what I'm seeing, but it's not so light as what is on the page at the moment. I'm going to go back to that grayish brown and add a little shading there. That's better. Okay, this fellow in the background. And I have to be really careful because it's so small of a space. Oh, that was pretty good. Yay! Ooh, it's really looking 3D now. This one way back here. I'll hold it up because it's so small you can't see it very well. Oh, thank you, camera, for autofocusing. Starting to get some really nice dimension and highlight. Oh, thank you, camera, for autofocusing back down as well. I'm so proud of you. I'm just looking my piece over to see what I want to work on next. Probably this red brown on the brown Gryphons. But the color that I used for shadow color on these fellows on the upper left, that's the color I used for the base color for this brown on the female Gryphons. So I need a different color. I need to mix a different color so it'll be a darker color since it's shadow. So bring my palette over here. Let's collect some of this paint that we've already mixed and awoken, and we'll just apply it here to the mixing area on the palette. I'm tapping my brush to get it to release as much paint as possible onto the palette. Because if you just brush it like this, it just keeps reabsorbing the paint. It'll put it down and suck it right back up in the same movement. We don't need too much, so that's probably enough actually. Okay, so clean this out. And I'll also scroll to one of the female birds that I'm looking at. Could just add a darker brown. They're very, very brown birds. I think maybe I'll just add a darker brown. Let's wake this dark brown up again. Something I'm trying to be careful about is not flicking the bristles of my brush, because I put my painting right here, so if I flick paint then it will land on the piece. That's just what happens when you have a limited amount of space and choices of where to put your stuff while you're doing something like this. And it's also not the end of the world if you do, or at least for me, it's not the end of the world, because even if I can't work it into the piece, this particular illustration series and most of my illustrations is going to have digital media added at the end anyway, so I can just clean it up that way as well. Okay, so I think I woke this up enough. See if there's enough in my brush to mix in to make a nice shadow color for this reddish brown. Well, this might work. Kind of want a little bit more. Let's grab a little bit more. Darken it up just a tad bit more. Okay, I'm tapping my brush again, trying to get as much to come off and come out of the bristles and go onto the palette. That's probably enough though, because I just have one full Gryphon and just the head of another Gryphon to paint with this color, so it's not too much. Don't need too much paint for that. So now I'm just rinsing my brush off. My water has gotten so murky that I can't really tell if there are swirls of color coming off, but if I lift the brush out of the water, I can see how clear the water looks coming off the brush there, so that's another way that I can determine whether the brush is rinsed enough to be moving on. I think it is. So let us paint these. Yeah, let's start off with this one. This one's going to be a little more tricky because it actually has two colors. And then there's shading. So we'll see what I can do. To start, I'm actually going to use a bigger brush than I have so far. The size 1 round brush. And I want a lot of water on it because I want a nice gradient here as the light hits the Gryphon and curves over it. So lots of water to make that happen. Nice smooth transition into the shadow color. Adding more and more water on the lighted side and letting the paint naturally, organically transition into the lighted side. Is that good? I've got an interesting shape going on here. I'm gonna smooth it out just a little bit. Let's add a little bit more pigment. Boop, 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 boop. So we definitely want it to be darkest on the right side of the Gryphon. That's pretty good. Let's just leave that to dry and move on to this one. The bottom left. So I guess I'll just paint this color on the whole thing and hopefully the existing color will show through and that will give it that sense of being two different colors that are in shadow. You could just snort a little bit. Starting with a lot of water, a lot of water. Now bringing in more shadow color, especially at the top where the underlying color, regardless of shading, is darker at the top of this Gryphon's head. And to reinforce the feeling of it being shadow and not just the pigment of the feathers, I'm going to use my towel and pull some color away right at the top. In line with the same thing we've got going on the beak. Let's do a little bit on the underside as well. A little light wrapping around over here too. Awesome. Oh, well, let's see. What do I want to work on next? Oh, yeah. I didn't do anything on these white feathers here. This is the only one that's showing this distinct white bar that really helps identify the lazuli bunting from the some other blue stone bunting that doesn't have these white bars on the wings. So we'll just use a gray. Wake up some gray. Definitely don't want it to be too thickly applied, so I'm going to really water it down. Okay, so first, these feathers are underneath the blue ones. So we'll do a little shaded edge here. And on this side. But also, the way the sun is, I think the whole thing would be pretty shadowy. So I'm going to do another layer. Really roughly, and then pull it up right away, so that it's just barely staining the paper with the gray. Staining the paper, don't want a really thick gray because it'll make it look not like white feathers, since we have so many gray feathers nearby already. And we can always add more, but it's really hard to take it back, especially once it's dried. You can work the page and try to get it to come up. You could even scrape the page off, but then that means the texture of the paper is different, so the color will look different if you apply more color there. So it's definitely better to get it how you want it, or be a little conservative, than to take it too far and then try to deal with it at that point. Okay, so is this first level shading done for everything? I'm just looking the piece over to see if there's anything. So just trying to see if there's anything I missed. But I don't think there is. I think we're ready to do next level shading. Sounds so epic. Next level shading. Let me have another drink of water. As usual, I have my shaker bottle with the dregs of my breakfast smoothie plus 24 ounces of water. That's why I'm always shaking my water. Because there's little nutrients still left in there. And flavor. Nutrients and flavor. Oh, I guess we could just go back to the beginning, which the first thing I started on was the rays on the sunflowers. So I'm going to switch back to my sunflower reference image. There it is. Oh yeah, and something I could do, not just shading. I could get more specific with some of this bright orange I'm seeing on the rays themselves. I have this nice organic mingling of the orange and yellow. But I'm wondering if this orange stuff is not just because of the lighting, but if some of it is because of pollen or something, because it doesn't look like that on every single one of the flowers I'm looking at in this reference image, but some of them it does. It looks like it's pollen or some texture. And as I was saying earlier, I was looking at this yesterday after I was done, and I felt like the shadows kind of dulled it down a little bit. So if I add more orange back in, just in strategic areas, I don't want to just like blast it all with orange because that'll just be too much. But just like here and there. Let's do that. So I don't actually have a like native orange color, which seems weird to me, but this color set didn't come with one. So I've been mixing. I think I'll start with, I think this is what I did before too. Start with the warm yellow. So let's wake that up. And then we'll add a little bit of the warm red, and that should give us a nice warm orange. Warm and vibrant. Trying to carefully carry the water all the way across the palette. Not the end of the world if the water or a little bit of pigment drips into a different color, but prefer if it doesn't happen. Okay, I'm trying to suck up as much of this color as I can and deposit it here on the palette. I'm thinking I won't need too much because I don't want to add too much. This is a little detail work that I want to do. So just strategic, restrained use of the color. But the sunflowers take up a huge amount of the space on this illustration, so we might need a decent amount just because of that, just because of the real estate that the sunflowers occupy. Alright, let's say that's good for the yellow. So I'm just going to rinse my brush off. The yellow is such a vibrant color that I can see the color swirls in my murky brown water. Okay, now let's gather some of this red. We don't need too much. Let's start with this and see what that does. Oh, it looks like queso. Yeah, this is perfect. This is the perfect color. Okay, now just trying to get the color to come off the brush as much as it can, as much as it will. Okay, we'll call that good. Rinse this brush. And move this back over to my left. Bring this back. The illustration. Wow, when I look over at my monitor over here, I didn't really notice, especially this one is looking really nice after today's work. Alrighty, let's do this. Since I really want to be subtle with this, I'm going to use my smallest size 0 round. And I'm just going to add some orange here and there. Trying to be a little random or organic about the placement. Definitely not really even, because that's not what I'm seeing in the reference image. And some of the sunflowers have hardly any of this orange, and others it's crazy how much they have. Oh, I got a little water on my hand. I bet that's what happened before. I noticed this time. Good job, me. Oh yes, this is doing exactly what I hoped it would. Just bringing some vibrance back into the sunflowers. They're just looking a little sad. Oops, I painted on the foot a little bit. Oh well, there's a little bit of orange on the foot. Oh, I got water on my hand again. Where am I getting water on my hand? I guess it's got to be from the water bowl. Gotta be more careful. Be careful, me. Oh, just got the 10-minute notification on my watch. Looks like it's just me here right now, so I probably won't raid anyone. My back's been bugging me anyway, and I have extra work to do to clean up since I won't be working on this tomorrow, so I think I won't raid. I'll just end my stream in 10 minutes as scheduled. So I do enjoy raiding and chatting with people and seeing what they're working on, but it does add extra time to my follow-up work. And like I was saying earlier during this stream, I am practicing for my second Toastmasters speech ever. So having a little extra time to practice my speech today would be very welcome as well. Just like yesterday, working on the double spiral in the middle of this bottom left sunflower. I'm painting these orange parts more carefully too, because this is the closest one to the viewer, so the details are more clear. And in order to give that impression, I need to be more precise with my brush strokes. Alright, there's just one more close-up sunflower. Nice. So these ones in the back, I don't think we'll see really detailed like strokes of color, but let's just add a little bit of orange. Just sort of pat it on there with the brush. So bring more of that vibrance back in. That's pretty good. Still so far from done, and yet every session makes such a huge difference compared to the last one. We have a few minutes left, but I think I'll end just a couple minutes early. Since again, it's just me right now. So I'm gonna hold this up so you can see all the difference we made today. So much paint. Oh, the camera's losing its mind because of the blue. Blue always trips up the camera. It does not know what to do with the white balance. Yeah, we've got the first level of shading done on everything and started adding more color to bring the vibrancy back. I wonder if we could turn up the exposure a little bit. It seems kind of dark. I'm doing it at the end of the stream where it doesn't make a difference. I don't know if I like it like that either. That's more. That's less. Kind of washes it out. Leave it like that. See what I think tomorrow. Tomorrow's stream is a completely different thing though. Okay, let's call that good for today. Hooray! Excellent progress made. We'll work again on this next week, but I'll be back tomorrow with Chibi Friday. So I hope to see you then. That's it for me today. Thank you for watching.